let's talk about the text artifact project. For this project, since this is a learner-driven course, you decide what format you want your product to be. You can create a Word document or a PDF or something similar to that, a document. It could also be a presentation, a PowerPoint or a Prezi presentation. You could create a web page, or you could choose to create an infographic. In all of these, the design principles are the same. It's just that the modality you're selecting is different. Select the modality that makes most sense for your audience. Okay, so if you were to be giving a lecture next week, working on a presentation makes sense. If you want to create a flyer, then maybe an infographic or a document. If you wanted to have create a website for people to come and access resources, then it could be a web page. So the format you select is dependent on what kind of product you want to create and what is available to you. Okay, now the topic itself, as this is learner-centered, you choose the topic that makes most sense to you. Choose something that is relevant to your work or your MED-HPE project. Now, let's talk about the length of these different artifacts, right? For a document, 1 or 2 pages is sufficient. If you're going to create a presentation, now the actual, let's say you're giving a lecture, the lecture itself might have 20-25 slides. Obviously, we can't review all your slides. So a presentation has to have a minimum of 5 slides. And if you have way more than 5 slides, identify 5 specific slides that you would like feedback on. Okay? So that it helps us focus in. For a web page, we're talking of ideally 1 or 2 pages for feedback. And an infographic is always just a 1-pager. Okay? So that's the length and scope of the project. Now let's talk about the design elements. First of all, the resources that are provided are to help you understand design elements. So highly recommend reading, going through the readings and the videos, because that'll explain this and give you a better idea of those design concepts. You don't have to be a graphic designer, but there are certain visual elements it helps to understand, and that's what the resources are intended for. So when we say color and font, right, you want your color and font, of course, to grab attention. What I want to highlight over here is your color, your font, the images you use is all dependent on your audience. If your audience is parents of small children, right? More pediatric if your audience is more pediatric, then what you would do is maybe choose more pastel shades, right? Light blue, light pink kind of thing, more cartoon kind of characters. Your fonts could also be a little bit more fun-loving. On the other hand, if you are creating a professional lecture handout, then your color scheme itself is going to be more muted and more professional in approach. So not light colors, maybe you're going to use a darker blue, right? And your font might be something like a Times New Roman, which is very serious and which is a good font for serious documents, right? Whenever you're creating documents or any text artifact, breaking up content into separate little sections in little grids, right? And then using subheadings and headings and font sizes, all of that will break up the visual monotony. So just this assignment layout that I have over here, I could completely transform this into a infographic, right? And if I were to create an infographic out of this, I would have more images and I would be breaking up this content into different sections. So that's the design elements. One element that you will have to include is some interactivity. So even in a Word document, you can have an interactive Word document. Interactivity is when you have links embedded in the document itself, right? And the links could be hyperlinks. You could also embed QR codes. Now, QR codes are not difficult to do. You have free QR code creators, and so you can use that to embed into your assignment, into your document as well. The links and the QR codes can also go into your PowerPoint presentations. It can go into your web page, of course. So that interactivity element is important. Make sure you include that. Okay. Now, the assignment itself is based on a feedback loop. So you submit the draft, you get feedback from your peers and the instructor, and then you redo the text document based on the feedback, and then you submit it again, right? The final version of it. When you submit your draft, I will provide grades for it, but that is just to show you where the draft is at this point in time, right? Now, if your draft is already at an A grade and you feel you don't really have the time to redo it, you don't need to redo it, okay? So for that purpose, I will be providing grades. It is not the final grade when it is in the draft. The final one will be in the final grade that is given. When you post your draft itself, I'd like you to highlight these 4 points. So where are you going to be using this product? Now, when you have a flyer, right, and it has lots of little pretty little pictures of cartoon animals, it doesn't make sense to me unless I understand that you're doing this for a pediatric clinic, right? So who is the audience and when are you using it? That kind of context makes a lot of difference. The next point is, what platform did you select and what is your experience with it? Now, what I'm looking for over here is, you might already be familiar with PowerPoint, and although you're using PowerPoint, you might now have expanded the complexity of that same presentation. You might now have scenario-based branching kind of logic happening in your presentation. You might now have included more visual appeal to it. So there are different things you can do with PowerPoint itself, but the complexity you've included in it, we'll only understand if you explain it, right? And remember, simplicity in your product is actually very difficult to do. So keep that in mind. And then when you were creating this, what were the best practices you focused on, right? So were you focusing on like font size, colors? What were you thinking about? And remember to highlight which slides you would like feedback on if you're doing a large number of slides. One thing I would like to mention about color especially is, color is very dependent on the viewer, right? But there are some basic principles. For example, have good contrast. You keep accessibility in mind. Not everyone can see all the colors well or the contrasts very well. And so keeping that in mind, make your color choices. Okay. Peer feedback. So you're going to look at the products of at least two of your peers, and then make any comment on what you see over there. So you could make a suggestion like, maybe consider something else, or the link doesn't work. Some feedback for them. What I've discovered is generally learners like to look at many of their peer products because they get a lot of ideas as well. Now, the final revised version is due by June 18th. The grade that is given for the final revised version is the grade that will be going into your which will count towards your final grade. So again, the draft is just a grade to give you an idea of where it is at right now. It is the final grade that will decide what grade your course comes up with. So tips for success: keep your audience in mind. And we have a lot of online tools nowadays that really help with design. And so I would encourage you to try out different online tools. One thing you want to keep in mind is working with all of these technologies to create these kind of products takes a lot of time. Do not underestimate how much time it will take you. If a discussion post takes you 30 minutes to an hour, these products will take you many hours to do. So please keep that in mind and budget accordingly. Now, through all of this process, I'm here to be a resource for you. Okay. Now, I cannot explain every software tool out there, right? But I'm going to highlight some of the tools that will be helpful for you. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to work through them with you.